Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another deck report. This is Season 5, week number 18, and we're back with Dracotail. So I went to two big tournaments this week. There was Win a Yummy Core tournament that happened at Tower Games on Thursday. That one had around 30 people. And then there was a Titan Games double case tourney of Justice Hunters that happened on Sunday. And that one had way more. I think it had around 50 players, or give or take. So on the Thursday tourney, it was 5 rounds, and I finished second place. I lost the very last round. I'll talk about that in a bit. And in the double case tourney, that was on Sunday, it was 6 rounds, and I was X1-1 by the final round, and I unfortunately lost on the final round, which put me on 19th place, which means I didn't make it. So if you do the sum between rounds and the days of the tournaments, I played a total of 11 duels with this list. I did make some slight changes between Thursday and Sunday's list, which I will talk about. And basically my ending record was X2-1. So 8 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Both my losses were to the same deck, and they were both lost in the final round. It was against Mitsurugi Raizio, and I'll say this before anything. The matchup is not that hard. It's really not a hard matchup for us. However, there were 2 specific scenarios where the same outcome came up about it, and once you see the deck, you'll understand what the scenario is. I will explain what happened. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is the Mitsurugi Raizio matchup is not that hard. It's really not a hard matchup at all. But the way that they handled the matchup was rewarding for them, and it's just ended up working out for my opponents. My one other loss, one other loss that I did have, so I did lose 3 total games this entire week. My other loss was to Vanquish Soul. The matchup was already hard, but the issue was not the matchup. The issue was Dimension Shifter. My opponent opened Dimension Shifter, and they pretty much just activated that card on me, and the issue was not playing around the Dimension Shifter. The issue is like breaking their board and securing a board against the Dimension Shifter. Like giving my Vanquish opponent 3 turns is a lot. Like that's a lot of turns. And the matchup is already unfavorable for us because their engine is faster than ours. So sadly, I did lose that match. But hey, you know, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! There's nothing I could do about it. I really like the list. I think the list was almost perfect for me. There are some things I could change about it, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, let's go ahead with the list. So 3 Lukias, 3 Faimena, 3 Mululu, the 1 Urgula, and the 1 Pan. So 11 Dracotails. I'll leave this for a second. 444, double Perulia, double Nibiru, and 1 new hand trap that I chose to play in this deck. And I will talk about this in more detail. Rescue Ace Impulse alongside Rescue Ace Fire Attacker. So these were all the hand traps that I played. I mean, if you want to count 5 mana and another one that I'll show you in a second, I guess those are also hand traps. But the real, like, generic monster hand traps are only those. So, Shaddolls, I played basically one of each. I just wanted versatility in, like, the ability of using all my Shaddolls, like, cleanly. In the future, I would bump Squamata to 3, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So, tier elements, we're back on Merly. I put Merly back in the deck. Fun fact, I never drew Merly the entire event, or like entire 2 events of me playing the deck. So, it was almost as if she was never there. And the last 2 monsters are 2 Blazing Cartesias. Spell cards. Triple Rahu. Triple Ketu. Triple Super Poly. One new addition is 2 Forbidden Droplets. Talents. Shaddoll Fusion. Called by the Grave. Shadow Schism. Flame. And Horn. That is the entire main deck. It is 50 cards. I'll talk about the ratios once I finish showcasing everything. Side deck. 3 Phantasme, 2 Drolls, 1 Performapal, 5 Rainbow Magician, 1 Duster, 2 Thrusts, triple Book of Eclipse, Rivalry, Goes and Match, Skill Drain. Steers up. Extra deck. SP, Construct, Double Winda, Grista, Shekinaga, Apkalone, Double Arthalion, 1 Gulamel, 1 Grabwinol, Stapelia, Garura, Mud, and Secretarian Dragon. Alright, explanation times. I'll start with the deck count first. So, the reason I opted for 50 cards is because I arrived to a conclusion that probably a lot of Dracotail players already arrived to. You need a high monster count in order to perform well with this deck. I'm playing 33 monsters in my main deck. And basically the consensus that I arrived to is that if you want to perform your Dracotail plays in the most optimal fashion, you need at least 1 monster in your hand. Let's talk about the hand traps. If you know me and you've been tuning into this channel, you probably already know I'm not the biggest fan of hand traps. I try to always elude the hand traps if I don't need to play them in a deck that can play well with this engine. However, there is something that no Dracotail player is going to debate, and it's the fact that just playing hand traps that replace themselves is something you need in Dracotail. If you don't utilize these hand traps, or these hand traps are no use, you just fuse them away, because the way that Dracotail works is like you can fuse with any monster in the hand. So there's no real bricks in this deck as long as you have your Dracotail engine rolling. As for why these specific hand traps is basically what I said earlier. these ones are kind of obvious. I think most Dracotail decks are probably playing these by now. And those who are not, then I really do suggest you playing some amount of these. So yeah. Now let's talk about Fire Attacker alongside Impulse. I've been seeing a lot of people main decking Phantasme in Dracotail, especially the Shaddoll variant. And my thought process was, why play a situational hand trap that is not really optimal or won't be activatable against every matchup, when you can play another hand trap that can do essentially almost the same thing as Phantasme, but it covers more matchups, and more importantly, the discard effect of this card actually comes up. We're playing 3 Tier Elements and 6 Shaddoll cards. These are 9 cards that you can discard with the Fire Attacker in order to get their effects. Like, so this essentially could either draw 3 cards, it could draw 2 and spawn out a Shaddoll monster, it could draw 2 cards plus spawn out a fusion monster, it could do like a lot of things. I really do think if you're playing like a really good Shaddoll count, you should highly consider Rescue Ace Fire Attacker. Back in the day, so this used to be played back in Vanquish Soul because of the attribute and because it just tutors humor cards. And in Tier Elements, back when Beatrice was legal, this was a level 6 that could make Beatrice. So this card was also really helpful in the Tier Element deck. At least the one that had the Ichizu Milling cards. Fast forward to today, a lot of people don't like playing these hand traps because these are essentially bricks if you end up like drawing the Fire Attacker and you just have no way to tutor it or no way to play with it. In this deck, specifically Dracotail, Fire Attacker is really good because Fire Attacker is not a real brick. Like, you can just fuse it away for a Dracotail and just swap it out for another card with Altharion's effect. So, yeah. Also, these being fire attributes do come up solely because we're playing Shaddoll Grista. Funnily enough, I actually did win one game by fusing away Fire Attacker into Grista against a Mitsurugi opponent. My opponent did not know what I was going to fuse into. I summoned the Grista, and the Grista just made it so they couldn't Prayers, they couldn't Mirakumo effect to bring itself back, they couldn't like, there was a lot of cards that this card was just freezing on the spot. And we'll talk more about Grista when we get to the next part. But yeah, if you are playing a Dracotail variant with Shaddoll cards, I highly recommend you play Fire Attacker. I really do think this is a really good hand trap, and not many people are catching on to it. Let me move this. I moved Cartesia down to 2. I kind of just didn't want to clog myself with this card, and it worked out. I didn't see it enough times, but the times I did see it, it actually did its job. I think a lot of Dracotail players are right to the conclusion that 11 is like the right number. Like, if you're playing a more purish build, you could play more dragons, but if you are playing a hybrid like I am, you just play the 11, because between these 11, which 9 of them are real starters, and the 6 spell cards, that puts you at 15 Dracotail cards that you can just use to like play your engine, which is a really good engine count. Like, I have had no issues with that amount. So, you notice that I'm not playing Pearl Rhino anymore. I basically swapped the Pearl Rhinos for the Rescue Ace package. But I thought to myself, if I'm going to lower on the field spells, I might as well up the tier element count, because essentially my thought process with these were that you could either draw into them and dish them with Fire Attacker, or just fuse them away for another Dracotail. And or fuse them with Super Poly and just get their beneficial effects. I actually won one match. It was against Yomi. Because I fused away 2 tier element monsters for Altharion. And both tier element monsters triggered. So alongside the Altharion, I summoned Dracotail and I summoned Mud Dragon. Yeah, which was really, really cool. There was one other game where I OTK'd my opponent because I had both Altharion and Gulamel in graveyard. Let's see if I can find it. I had both of these in graveyard. And essentially what I did is I fused for a new Altharion. And all of a sudden, Gulamel came back, second Altharion came back, and I made Mud Dragon. Like, one fusion summon became 4 fusions. And I just OTK'd my opponent. Like, right on the spot. So, I don't dislike playing the tier elements. I actually do think I'll keep playing the tier element monsters. Something I will do, I will update the extra deck a little bit, adjust it a little bit. I won't tell you what changes I will make, because I do want to keep you guys surprised for the next deck report. What I will say is, my next Dracotail list is probably going to be more tier element focused. So that's the only hint I'll give you. Alright. So I think that's it for monsters, at least. I guess I'll talk about Nibiru real quick. Shoutouts to Julian Kahan. He's been on the Dracotail train in this past week, and there's one point that he brought up about Nibiru that is actually very correct, and it kind of makes this card a staple in Dracotail. When you're playing Dracotail, your best defensive card is 5 mana, and you want 5 mana to resolve. If you're facing against opponents that have anti-hand traps cards on the board, like Ripper, Raziel Cross, Mitsurugi Murakumo, just to give you a few examples, you kind of want to bait those cards first before resolving 5 mana. Or if you feel like Nibiru is the right card to use, you can just 5 mana first and then Nibiru. And subsequently, if there is a position where you feel like you need the Nibiru to not give a token, you can activate Nibiru and then chain 5 mana, fusing away the Nibiru. That is another thing you could do in this deck. Very similar to how Orcus does it with Babel, and how the Mitsurugi interaction happens with Murakumo. You can just dump your Nibiru and just wipe the board entirely. Take note, like, you will be open and susceptible to like other hand traps and stuff if you do that. So keep that in mind when you're doing that tactic. All right, so that's it as far as monsters go. Let's go with the main deck real quick. I'll start with the spells. So you notice how Thrust is now in the side deck. On Thursday, I didn't even have Super Poly in my main deck. One thing that a lot of Dracotail players have been bringing up in their videos, and it's something I kind of wanted to test the theory against, is the fact that this deck cannot play enough board breakers. Like, when it comes to Dracotail, there are at least 20 to 30 cards that you kind of have to play in this deck if you are playing this deck. Like, just the spell cards and the monsters alone is already almost 20 cards. Like the spell and traps, as rather. Like, there's already 11 Dracotail cards in the main. There's the 6 spell cards, and then there's the 2 trap cards. So that puts us at 18. Those are 18 cards out of your main deck that are dedicated to Dracotail, which doesn't give you that many options, especially if you run hand traps. Like in a typical Dracotail deck, it kind of gives you like less than 10 spots if you want to play 40. I kind of wanted to try against that theory and see if I could play more than 40 while actually seeing a healthy amount of Dracotail cards. And out of 11 games, I can say this for sure: I only bricked once. Only once. And the one time I bricked, I had the Rescue Ace Impulse, which got me to the Fire Attacker, which unbricked my hand. So essentially, I kind of like opened an engine piece that just filtered through my main deck very thoroughly. So I can say for certainty, don't be afraid to play over 40. Like, I know that the math is odd, but Dracotail is not a one-card combo deck, so you don't have to worry about like opening a very specific Dracotail hand. You kind of just want to see multiple monsters that work alongside Dracotail cards. Blazing Cartesia is like the best example. So last week I was playing Fusion Deployment. I opted not to play this like this time, for the same reason I didn't want to play Pearl Rhino. Those are not real Dracotail cards, and the starters you want to see are Dracotail cards. So essentially what I did is I swapped them out for like more non-engine cards. This Forbidden Droplets was a last minute decision during the weekend, and I'll be more than happy to say this card actually worked out. This card actually did more than I expected. One really cool thing about Droplets is Droplets triggers Altharion, and it triggers Gulamel from Grave. If you end up sending 2 or plus monsters with Droplets, these 2 recognizes that you did send multiple monsters, or multiple monsters were sent while they were on the graveyard, and they can just bring themselves back. And this is by any means. It doesn't have to be like a specific card effect or anything. It's just 2 or more monsters being sent to the graveyard at the same time, period. So even the cost of Forbidden Droplet works for the fusions. That only came up once. It was against my Yomi opponent, and it was the final nail in the coffin. That matchup wasn't that hard for me at all. But yeah, Droplets is also really good against the Dracotail mirror match, because what essentially you can do with Droplets is use Droplets to dodge Dracotail Flame from negating whatever spell card you're trying to activate against your opponent. Very similar to how you use it to just dodge monsters being targeted. You can use this to dodge spell cards being targeted by Flame. That only came up once, but that is another really good thing that you should be theorying. If you use droplets to send a trap card, you can dodge the flame from negating the droplets as well. I just really do believe this is a really good breaker, this format. And for the boards that people are making nowadays, you kind of need cards like droplets and cards like Super Poly to just help break the board. I had no regrets playing these 5 breakers, and I will keep doing so for the foreseeable future. If not in the main deck, at least in the side deck. And I do highly recommend you guys who are not playing these cards to actually try these cards, because we're slowly shifting into a format where these cards are going to be way more favorable than it was last format. So last time I profiled this deck, Schism was in the side deck. I just wanted an edge over the Vanquish deck if I won the die roll. And I have been winning die rolls against that deck now more than before. I just kind of just wanted the option. Essentially this and Shaddoll fusions are just toolbox utility that you can gain out of like Blazing Cartesia into Dragwind Null. Like this is not just a Dracotail deck, this is basically like a toolbox deck for your fusion monsters, and just having access to these 2 Shaddoll cards is kind of beneficial for us. So yeah, I don't regret playing these. I think these are really good. Schism is especially good because you want more ways to make Winda besides just 5 mana. Like relying on 5 mana to just make Winda leaves you open to certain cards, and I will talk about that. I guess I'll talk about it right now. So remember when I said my 2 losses were Raizio Mitsurugi? Both games I lost because my opponent had an answer for Dracotail Flame. So I'll explain the scenario. I had the Dracotail traps alongside 5 mana, alongside the 5 mana, and a way to make Winda. Let's say these 2 for example. One game I lost against Mr. Raizio, I chained the 5 mana to their Habakiri, trying to summon a Mitsurugi monster, and they tried to call by the grave, negate the 5 mana. I chained the Dracotail Flame to attempt to negate the call by the grave, and they went and they chained Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring to negate my Dracotail Flame, and my 5 mana ended up getting banished, and I couldn't resolve to make Winda, and then he proceeded to full Mitsurugi combo me. Another scenario was very, very similar. Essentially what happened was my Mitsurugi opponent tried to use Habakiri effect. I tried to 5 mana. The 5 mana did go through, and I did summon Winda. Like, the Winda actually hit the board, and I felt very comfortable because I was backed up with a Winda alongside the 2 trap cards, and they already exhausted their special summon with Habakiri. So surely nothing can go wrong, right? Like, I'm already in a more winnable game state than I was the last time. Well, my opponent had Book of Eclipse, and they tried to eclipse my Winda. I tried to chain Dracotail Flame, and they had Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion to negate my Dracotail Flame. And my Winda got flipped, and he proceeded to full combo. Very unfortunate how that came about, but those were my two losses. Which now comes to the Shaddoll Schism. I just want more ways to make Winda in case those weird scenarios do happen, because against very high ceiling decks like Mitsurugi Raizio and Vanquish Soul, like just floodgating them like out of the game is like one of the best things you can do with this deck, because Dracotail is one of those decks that really don't mind playing the slow game. Like we have really big monsters that can just like outright play the game, like between Arthalion, Secretarion Dragon, Gulamel, and then you have like the big Dracotails, like for example the Pan. Like between all of these, you just have enough ways to just deal damage to your opponent while being sitting down behind floodgates. Which is why you see these other floodgates in my side deck. I did face 2 Vanquish Souls this week, and one of my Vanquish Soul opponents, shoutouts to Baby Otter Games, they did lose the match because I resolved Skill Drain and Rivalry while punching them down with Gulamel plus Lucius. I basically played Lucius Beatdown with these two, alongside these two Floodgate cards. Which just kind of shows you how adaptive Dracotail can be with certain side cards. Like, not many decks in the format can play Skill Drain, but we can play Skill Drain. And Skill Drain is really strong this format. Just to give you one example. Alright. So, I essentially just chose these 3 because these are the strongest floodgates I could think of. These 2 are not good against Yomi, but Skill Drain and Schism are good against Yomi. So, with Schism in the main deck, it also gives you the avenue for Shaddoll Construct, and I guess I should talk about that part real quick. But before we go and do that, let's talk about the rest of the side deck. So, we already talked about the 3 floodgates. Last week I was main decking Book of Eclipse. I just arrived to the conclusion that you just want more monster cards than spell cards. But I still didn't want to not play this card. I kind of wanted to just have a secure answer for Vanquish Soul. This also answers a lot of combo decks, including link decks like Malice, if you're going first. So essentially that's what became about this card. Thrust in the side, I felt that Thrust, as good as it was for the main deck, and like I did face Canine cards like throughout the entire week. This doesn't cover every single matchup if you're going first, so I just opted for the side when I already know I'm going second. The purpose behind this card is basically just get us to like our power spell cards, like our Dracotail spells, Shaddoll Fusion, like triple tactic talents, and it worked out. I played against Orcus Mitsurugi player throughout the week. Shoutouts to MRTCG, and this Thrust won me the game, like straight up. Like their inboard was ridiculous. They had Crescendo, Purification, Futsu, IP, and Enkirgirsu, I think it's called, the Mech Knight, the Link 4 Orcus monster. They had a full graveyard loaded. They had the droplets set as well as, and they had the orchestrated Babel, and Thrust into Shaddoll Fusion won me the game. After this Shaddoll Fusion resolved, it was a huge blowout. So, yeah, for now, I just feel comfortable with Thrust in the side deck. I think Thrust in the side deck is correct. And if you're not playing this card this format, you really should play this card this format. Like, even post side, if you're going first, if you know that you're facing against K9 cards, or facing against Vanquish Soul cards, or facing against like the Dracotail mirror match, this card is just really strong, especially if you pair it with Duster. That's another advice that I'll give you. If you are going first and you're playing the Dracotail mirror match, siding the Duster, even if you're going first, because a lot of Dracotail players, what they're gonna do is they're gonna try to set up in your turn for their turn. So if they set their spell and traps, you can just wipe them all out, and that is one less headache to worry about. Purple of 5 Rainbow Magician, this is for Vanquish Soul, that is already given. You kind of have to respect Mitsurazio. I lost to 2 of them, so, you know, draw is one to inside. So, Phantasme. Why did I play this? You probably noticed I'm not playing Artifact Lancia, and I'm not playing Chaos Hunter. This is my consensus for Malice, while also handling the other decks. I just feel like there's way too many decks in the format right now, and you cannot cover all of them. But you want cards that like overlap between different matchups. Against Malice specifically, I didn't feel like the matchup was that horrible. Like, if you resolved a well-timed 5 mana into like an Eltharion to bounce their Link monsters after they exhaust half their Malice effects, that's really, really strong. Not only that, just making Winda before they pop off, like with their Malice effects, also can come up. You have enough ways to like punish the Malice cards. Fire Attacker is not that great unless they summon Red Ransom. That is the one card that will make this card viable. But yeah, I just felt like the hand traps were enough. Like, we go back to the Nibiru example. Just pairing Nibiru with 5 mana against Malice should be good enough to handle their board. Especially if you have a Phantasme next to it. Like, if your opponent gets to like 2 to 3 Link monsters, this is like 3 to 4 draws. And this drawing you into these, or drawing you into breakers. Like, for example, the Super Poly, because not many breakers are good against Malice, but Super Poly is ridiculous against Malice. So, yeah. I just feel like you're going to be in a position where Malice should not be as problematic for you if you know how to deal with that matchup. And this is coming from somebody who did play Malice for like 15 plus weeks. Yeah, that's essentially it. Alright. Let me move these out of the way. Let's talk about the extra deck real quick. Secretarian Dragon overperformed this weekend. I OTK'd 3 times because of this card. 2 of those 3 OTKs did matter. If I didn't OTK them that turn, they were going to like come back real quick with their engine. So this actually did help a lot. So I'm not playing 3 Eltharions. The reason I'm not on 3 Eltharions is because you probably already noticed the extra deck space and everything I'm dedicating to it. I never needed the 3rd one. Like, the 3rd one did not come up for me at all. And I did fuse this away with the Tear Element monster twice to make Dracotail. And that was enough to like secure the Grand Game. Like, more Dracotail players will notice in the future as you keep playing the deck that maybe 2 will be correct if you are accustomed to it. So, SP finally did come up for me twice. I did misplay with it one game, which forced a draw against the Dracotail mirror match. Well, not mirror match, they were playing the K9 heavy variant. But yeah, I did summon Construct twice. Once was to set up Shaddoll Schism, and the other one was against a Fire King opponent to just help break their board. Some Dracotail players are only playing one window. I am playing 2. The second one does come up, especially on the weird scenarios that I talked about. Yeah. Krista. So this is a new addition. This card was phenomenal. I actually am super happy that I played this card. Shoutouts to Aaron McInnes. He was the one where I saw this idea come from. First, probably somebody else thought about it first, but I saw it first from Aaron McInnes. Yeah, fusing away with Shaddoll Fusion for Krista with the Urgula is a lot of pressure. It's just a lot of pressure. One card that I did not make at all, and I'll probably take out of my deck in the future, is El Shaddoll Shekinaga. I just never summoned this card. In the scenarios that I wanted this card, Krista was just a lot better. This is not a spellcaster, this is not a dragon, like this is a machine. This is kind of weird to summon. You can make it with Altharion and Shaddoll, but like at that point, like you're already ahead, like way too ahead already. You can actually make Secretarian Dragon instead of this, with that combination that I just mentioned, and just use the Secretarian Dragon to bring back the Altharion. So yeah, this is probably getting cut. Abkalon, you already know why this card is in here. Greg would know this did came up. I summoned this twice, specifically using 2 Mitsurugi monsters. I made this card a lot, not even with Super Poly. I made this card with the Tearlament effects. And this actually did come up for me. One game I was against a K9 opponent, and this card was there to secure Ripper. That way I could resolve my 5 mana. So yeah, and I did summon Mad Dragon enough times. There was one game where this came up because I had Lucius and Arthalion, and I just essentially made this an Earth attribute so I could play around the Dracotail Flame with these 2 cards on board. Alright. So, final verdict. I absolutely love the list. I think the list is almost where I want it to be. There are some changes that I will make in the future. One change I will make is taking out the Shekinaga. I think I already know what I'm going to replace for it. But instead of telling you what the replacement is, just stay tuned for next week with another deck report. Alright. Until then, I hope you found this informative to your liking and understanding. YCS Vancouver is this next weekend. I will not be attending that event, but I will be watching it and I will keep an eye on it because I actually do have high hopes for Dracotail. I actually do think that this deck, in the right hands, in the right pilot, with the right mindset, could actually make it. And it doesn't have to be my build. It really doesn't have to be this variant. It could be like 40 card variant, it could be the K9 variant, it could be a heavier Shaddoll variant. It would be really cool if people keep experimenting with the tournament cards, but you know, I'll probably be the only tournament Dracotail player for a while. Alright, that's it from me. Keep practicing and keep dueling.